You hear about people our age moving abroad. You watch videos, you read stories, people packing up a life they lived for decades and starting again somewhere overseas. At first, it's just interesting, but then something shifts. You start wondering, could I do that? Is this something I should even be thinking about? I've had those thoughts many times. I still do. Because living a quality life has gotten hard. Not extravagant, not fancy, just decent. The dollar doesn't stretch the way it used to. You work, you budget, you do everything right, and somehow you're still barely making it. Just enough to keep a roof over your head. Just enough to put food on the table. Nothing extra. And that wears on you. So you start looking over the fence. You see people living somewhere else, calmer, slower, seemingly lighter, and you wonder if it's real, or if it's just one of those moments where the grass only looks greener on the other side. And that's when the old dream starts stirring again. Maybe you didn't travel when you were younger. Not because you didn't want to, but because you were busy doing life the hard way. Working, raising families, showing up, being responsible. Travel became something for later, and later kept getting postponed. So now the question isn't reckless. It's quiet, practical, almost unavoidable. Is this the time to finally live that dream, or at least look at it honestly, without pretending it's just a fantasy? This isn't about running away. This is where the story usually gets misunderstood. When people hear moving abroad, they imagine someone fed up, burned out, trying to escape a life they hate. But that's not what this question feels like. It doesn't come from anger. It comes from awareness. You've done what you were supposed to do. You worked. You contributed. You carried responsibility for decades. And somewhere along the way, you realize this isn't about leaving a place. It's about choosing how your remaining years are shaped. This isn't running away. It's recalibrating. It's noticing that the life that once fit no longer does, and giving yourself permission to ask what does now. Why this idea is growing among older adults. That's why this thought keeps showing up for so many people our age. Life has changed, quietly but drastically. Costs are higher. Healthcare feels harder to navigate. Housing feels heavier than it used to. Social circles shrink without explanation. At the same time, your energy becomes more valuable. You notice how much effort it takes just to maintain the basics, and you start wondering what life would feel like if it didn't take so much just to stay afloat. So the idea of somewhere slower, somewhere simpler, somewhere that doesn't demand so much just to exist, starts to make sense. Not as an escape, as an alternative. The real advantages, when it works. When living abroad works later in life, it rarely works for flashy reasons. It works because life becomes manageable again. Money stops feeling like it's constantly slipping through your fingers. Daily tasks feel lighter. Your days stop being so tightly packed. In many places, the cost of living is lower, not because life is cheap, but because it's less complicated. Smaller homes, local markets, fewer subscriptions, less noise telling you that you need more. Healthcare often feels different too. You're seen, you're heard, you know what things cost. Routine care becomes routine again, and that changes how safe you feel moving through your days. And then there's the pace. After 60, speed loses its charm. You start valuing places where people walk slower, sit longer, and don't rush you through life. In those places, aging doesn't feel like a problem to fix. It feels like a natural stage, respected, not resisted. Community forms quietly as well. Through repetition, familiar faces, small daily interactions. Not forced, just steady. And there's something else people don't talk about enough. When life gets simpler, you start noticing yourself again. You notice how you sleep, how you breathe, how your body feels when it's not constantly bracing for the next expense or surprise. You're not chasing happiness, You're just not fighting life all the time. For many people, that quiet relief is the real shift. The parts people don't like to admit. This path has edges, and pretending otherwise is where people get hurt. Distance changes things, even when you think you're ready. You miss moments you didn't expect to miss. Emergencies feel heavier. Time with family becomes intentional instead of casual. Language can be tiring. What feels charming at first can become exhausting over time, especially as energy changes. Healthcare isn't unlimited. Routine care may be excellent, but serious conditions require planning and backup, and visas are not promises. Rules change. Nothing is guaranteed. Flexibility isn't optional, it's part of the agreement. And then there's the part no one likes to say out loud. Sometimes the place isn't the problem. You can move countries and still carry worry with you. You can change scenery and still feel unsure. Living abroad doesn't fix loneliness, grief, or unfinished business. It just gives you a different backdrop to face them. That doesn't make the idea wrong. It just means the move has to come from clarity, not desperation. Who this actually works for this lifestyle tends to fit people who value calm over convenience. People with predictable income, people who are comfortable renting, people who don't need everything to feel familiar. It doesn't require wealth, but it does require honesty about who you are and what you need now. Places that tend to work well for older adults. Some places keep coming up because they balance daily life well, not because they're perfect, but because they're livable. What matters most isn't the country, it's the neighborhood, the healthcare access, how your days actually feel when you wake up there. The smart way to approach this. The people who do well don't leap. They test. They stay a few months. They rent. They keep exit plans. They don't burn bridges. They build options. And they don't frame this as a final decision. They treat it like a conversation with themselves. They ask, how does my body feel here? Do my days feel heavier or lighter? Am I calmer or just distracted? And they give themselves permission to change their mind, because wisdom isn't about committing at all costs. It's about listening and adjusting. What this is really about. In the end, this isn't about geography. It's about agency. It's about choosing how your days feel now, not how they used to feel or how they're supposed to feel. For some people, that means staying right where they are and reshaping life gently from the inside out. For others, it means somewhere new. Wisdom is knowing which answer belongs to you. Not everyone should move abroad later in life, and honestly, not everyone needs to. But everyone deserves to reach this stage of life knowing they still have options, knowing that their story isn't finished. It's just changing pace. For some people, peace comes from staying right where they are and reshaping life gently from the inside out. For others, it comes from somewhere new, a different rhythm, a different view, a different way of moving through the day. Neither choice is braver than the other. What matters is that the choice is yours. If this idea has crossed your mind, even quietly, it doesn't mean you're restless or ungrateful. It means you're paying attention to your life and asking it to fit you better now. And that takes wisdom. Thank you for spending this time with us. Truly. These are not small questions, and they deserve to be asked slowly. If this topic resonated with you, I'd love to hear where you are in that thinking. Whether you're curious, skeptical, already planning, or simply listening for now. Your story matters here.